world a better place by bringing together authentic minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone, and today I bring to you a special show with amazing veterans, because this show is all about helping those who are ready to transition from their military to civilian life. And they're doing an event at Napoleon Hill Institute, and I thought it would just be so important to also share this on my show, because what we do at the Napoleon Hill Institute is really help people with the change, with transition. And change is not easy, but it can be done. And these are the experts here on today's show to share with us how their story and how they did their transition. So welcome everyone, Ericka, Frank, Lefford, and Albert. It's such a pleasure to have you here today. I'm going to begin with you, Ericka. If you can share your story a little bit with us, and we'll take it from there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having us here. And we're finishing the week of honoring Memorial Day,
Yes.
remembering the fallen. And here we are as a group of veterans sharing time with you, Giovanna. So thank you so much.
Yes.
My story is an immigrant story. I came to the United States at the age of 12 from Guatemala, Central America. And I immediately knew that I wanted to be in the military. The military in the United States looks and it is different than the military I grew up with in my own country. And I immediately wanted to wear the uniform. So I knew that I wanted to be in some sort of military branch since the age of 12. So I'm a Air Force veteran, but I wanted to be in the Marine Corps.
Gotcha.
So as a young teenager, and I know Frank is, he's smiling, proud Marine, but I wanted so badly to be a Marine. I went to my recruiter. He trained me. He prepped me. My mom would not sign the paperwork. I was underage and she wouldn't sign the paperwork for me to go into the Marine Corps. So I thought, right, talking about self-limiting beliefs, I thought that was it. If I couldn't be a Marine, that's it. And I stopped thinking about the military until I was 22.
Wow.
And yesterday, I shared, as a matter of fact, I was with Lefford. I shared the story of how at the age of 22, I ended up being an airman, and I served Giovanna and everyone in the room for 32 years in the Air Force. And it was an amazing ride, amazing adventure, and how I left with pride, right? I left with my shoulders up, but internally I was holding on to the walls like, please don't let me go. I don't want to go. But it was 32 years of life. Yeah.
Wow. Long journey, that's for sure. And Frank, your story, and then we'll go around with some other questions to really dig deep into this. Frank, share your story.
Thank you, Giovanna. I grew up in a small town in New England, New Hampshire, and I had no plan to go in the military until May of my senior year in high school. And I decided that I better figure out a plan because the school time was about to end. I wasn't interested in going to college. I wasn't very much an academic, and so I went down to the recruiting office, and I had the fortune of running into a Marine sergeant, a recruiter, who remained my friend for over 50 years. Um,
Wow.
Spent about 2 hours talking with him, signed up, and left for boot camp in October of 1974. Um, I had the fortune of traveling all over the West Pacific. Before I was 19, I had been to Guam, Taiwan, Thailand, Hong Kong, Korea, and the Philippines. As the Marine Corps always does, they like to make a shift. So they took me off the ocean and stuck me in the desert. And then I transitioned myself out of my radio communications job into a recruiting position. I went to recruiter school in 1977. I replaced my recruiter in my hometown, and then I stayed on recruiting for about 4 years. I got out after 6 years. I actually transitioned twice in my career. I transitioned at age 24. I ended up working for a major life insurance company, and did that for a year. Made the $1 million roundtable. Got a high and tight haircut. Told my sales manager I was going back in the Corps. And when I went back in to talk to the commanding officer, he said, "What would you like to do?" I said, "Well, I was pretty good at that recruiting thing." Never thinking there was any way they'd put me back on recruiting. They did, and I spent 20 of my 22 years as a recruiter. So part of my mission and where my heart is as a veterans advocate, I spent so much of my career recruiting young men and women into military service. I feel like I have an obligation to help them on the back end. So
Beautiful.
that's where I come from. That's how I ended up with Napoleon Hill Institute. Somebody whispered in my ear they were starting a veterans division. I said, "I'm in." So
No
um,
accident while you're here.
no,
That's for
no
sure.
accident at all. It was all supposed to be.
Absolutely.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you. Albert, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
So I have a similar story to Frank and Ericka. Um, our recruiting office was well known at our high school. And 6 months before graduation, career counseling and everybody's getting their plans for after graduation. I didn't have a plan. I knew I couldn't afford college. So, I started to look at going to the military for an education because of the GI Bill. And they called me in December before graduation and said, next week we end this Vietnam GI Bill. And if you sign up now, you get all the benefits and we'll defer your enlistment until after you graduate. Well, I wasn't ready. But, come graduation time, I did end up going down to the AFI Center to take my test and found out that I had also scored well enough to take just about any job that I wanted. And I wanted to be in um, the electrical field and work with computers. I didn't think of, computers being associated with fire control technicians, but an electrician's mate seemed relatively easy for me to get into. So I started in electrician's mate and went through the A school. That's what they call the education program in the Navy, and found my boat, my ship in Subic Bay, Manila. Had to fly into Manila from Pittsburgh. That was a 24-hour flight, several legs on MAC flights and commercial airlines, but finally took a 3-hour bus ride from Manila to Subic Bay and got on my ship. Found a rack. It was empty, and they let me stay there overnight until I could get my formal berthing area. The next morning, I was woken up and told that I needed to muster with the electrician's mates on board the ship because somebody fell asleep. The forward engine room had 3 cracks in the hull, and it had flooded, and 13 electrical motors had fried because of the salt water, and electricity and water don't work too well together. And they were leaving the next day in 24 hours. So it was all hands on deck. Let's get these motors off, repaired, and brought back on. Well, unbeknownst to me, half of the motors were from World War II, and they didn't have screw holes in it to stick eye bolts to put in a chain to wrap it up and securely lift it off the ship. So they used clothesline on the one that I was supporting, and it was about an 80-pound motor, and it got 80% of the way up. It was about 8 feet in the air, and I was on the mess decks in a ladder, one leg in, one leg out, and it slipped. The clothesline expanded. If you know cotton clothesline, it expands, right?
Yes.
And it slipped, and luckily, adrenaline is a wonderful drug. Let me tell you this. It was either catch the motor or lose my leg. So I caught the motor, and it threw my back up against the hand railing, and I set it up on the ladder, and the guys that had flown out of the compartment area where the ladder was, came back in, and I'm like, can somebody give me a hand here? And long story short, I was in my rack for 3 days straight. They sent me off to Balboa Naval Hospital, and they looked at me and they said, yeah, you shouldn't be walking. How did you get in here? Because I had broken 4 discs in my back. We want to operate. We want to cut through your stomach and operate on your spine. And I'm thinking, doctors practice medicine. They don't really heal people, do they? Oh, that's right. They bury their mistakes. So I asked them, I said, if you go through my stomach to get to my spine, am I going to lose sensation in my legs? And they're like, yeah, most definitely. You're going to lose some sensation. I'm like, I like walking. Well, you shouldn't be walking now. How did you get in here? This was a colonel, a commander. And I'm like, well, I put one foot in front of the other and I followed that on down the road. And here I am. Well, they said, well, if you don't take the surgery, you have to leave military service. So they had a medical review. I had one statement I could write. I said, I really love my job. I love what I'm doing. I know I can find work here. Please let me stay. I was 19. I was young and dumb. And they decided that, no, I couldn't stay even on a light duty to heal my back. And since they weren't going to get to crash test dummy their surgery techniques on me, they had to kick me out. And that's the way I put it. But everybody thanks me for my service, and I tell them, it's my honor, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Yes.
I think all of us here would go back if we had the choice.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was a really touching story. It really was. Lefford, welcome.
What up, sis? Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Sorry about that. I just left a major meeting. So my military journey, I joined at 17 years old. Like Ericka, my parents had to sign to allow me to join the military. I did not have the finances to go to college. I did not know. I wasn't good enough athlete. And I was smart, but I didn't have the grades to get scholarships. And so at 17 years old, a high school guy, I took the test. I joined the Air Force, signed up in a program called Delayed Enlistment Program. And so I went off, finished high school, graduated high school on the 5th of June. And in July, I was off to Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, Texas. So I left at 17 and I came back home 31 years later as a 48-year-old man who did not know how to be a civilian. I didn't even speak civilian. I would say stuff like PCS, TDY, and everybody in my world knew exactly what that was. And so for me, transitioning from the military was mentally tough because I didn't know how to do it. But by the grace of God and some great leadership and some people that went before me, I made some good choices. I was what you call an incompetent competent. I made friends. I worked my butt off. I did some things. I got to know people. And so I learned a few lessons, and then I had an opportunity to take a great position when I left the military. And everything, I'm like what Abraham Lincoln said about his mother. Everything I am and everything I've done, I owe to what the Air Force poured into me. The Air Force did not make me a man. The Air Force made me a better man.
I love that. I love that. With the transitioning, I know it's difficult because it's change, right? And I'm going to take you guys back. I'm going to have you imagine that day that you were packing up your stuff to enter into this new journey, your next step in life. What did that feel like, Kelly? Ericka, I'm so sorry I keep calling you Kelly.
For me, it was exciting. I have shared that what I was leaving was a very toxic, very violent environment. So for me, going to basic training, going to that airport, waiting for the bus in San Antonio to pick us up, to take us to the base was scary, but exciting, scary.
This is when you left, when you were done with your
Oh,
service.
I'm sorry, Giovanna. I thought you asked me about the first day of entering the military. You're asking about packing my office
Yes.
and going home after 32 years.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, well, there was a little bit of excitement there, but this is what the picture looked like. The picture looked like I had two offices. I had one at the Pentagon and I had one in Georgia where the Air Force Reserve Command had its headquarters. So I had to pack two offices and I had to say goodbye to two groups of individuals.
Mhm.
And I think I shared yesterday, for sure today, that I was ready to transition out, but I didn't do a good job at taking care of me and my family in that transition, meaning that I worked until the last day. The last day.
Mhm.
And that did not give me any room to really take care of some critical issues. And, you know, all of us here are helping transitioning members. And I think that is my biggest takeaway on the excitement. I'm leaving. What's next? I got it. I mean, it's just full of emotions. I can't give you one emotion. It's just full of
Oh,
emotion.
absolutely. I
Hmm?
understand.
But the takeaway for me is that there has to be preparation. There has to be preparation before that last day.
Thank you. Thank you. And Frank?
Thank you. So my experience was a little bit different. As I said, I transitioned out twice. My first transition, I was 24 years old. I had served 6 years, and I had spent 4 years, my last 4 years as a recruiter. So I was going out with what I thought were some pretty good skills. I was pretty good in sales. I was always at the top of our recruiting stats, and so I was going to walk out into the civilian community and go into sales, which I did. Uh, it wasn't a big transition from a base because I lived off base. My entire career, I never actually lived on a base except for when I was going through training. So it was a different type of transition. But what I did recognize is nobody spoke the way I did. As Lefford mentioned, we have a different language. Uh,
Yeah.
in the military in general, the Marine Corps more specifically, we have a different way of expressing things. Uh, uh, Ericka and I had a conversation earlier this afternoon, and I know she could sense the language that I spoke back then. I'm an aggressive, very motivated, very energetic type person, which helped me succeed in sales. But I was missing something, and I realized it within 90 days of being out of the service. I was missing the camaraderie, the family, the acceptance, and just the community that we enjoyed, even though I was only in for 6 years at that point. So when I went back in, now the second transition was different because now I had served 22 years. I had really increased my skills. When I finished up, I was at headquarters Marine Corps in Washington, D.C. I was a national sales trainer, part of a team for the entire country of recruiters. So I thought it was even better than I was before. And my experience was kind of shattering. I remember having a conversation with a recruiter, a civilian recruiter, and they just laughed at me, wondering why I thought I had the skills to enter their field. To the point where I actually volunteered to work for free for the first 3 weeks so they could determine whether or not I had the skills. Napoleon Hill actually teaches that in his book Think and Grow Rich, and I'm glad I did because after 2 weeks, the owner's wife questioned my integrity, and I immediately resigned. Uh, you don't question a veteran's integrity. We all know what that holds for us. So that event really caused me to question my leaving service. I could have stayed for another 8 or 9 years, but I found a way to make it work. thankfully I did have skills, and the Marine Corps gave me the confidence, the persistence to just keep pushing on. So different experience, but definitely missed the family.
Yes. And, once you take on a life that is dedicated to service, right? It's so hard to lose track of everything else around us because you're so focused on a commitment that you make. So thank you. And Albert?
Yeah, my experience was obviously different.
Yeah.
I wasn't in quite as long as everybody else, but I was in San Diego, and I was on light duty because of my back. And part of my job was shuffling new recruits coming on base to get them to their barracks so that they could find their way. But when I left, the barracks that we had was like boot camp, rows and rows and rows of double bunked beds. And I had a foot locker and I had a duffel bag, and that was about the extent of it. I was in charge of the lucky bag, and we collected clothing items and personal products that were recyclable for other recruits that didn't have things, and they could come down and sort through our wares and take things free of charge. It was kind of like Goodwill for the Navy.
Yes.
But other than getting my discharge orders and hopping on a plane to come back to Pittsburgh, I didn't have to close down things. Didn't have a whole lot of friends there because my friends were on the ship. And as soon as I left to go to the hospital, they put the ship that I was on, it was the Admiral's yacht. It was USS Chicago, CG-11. They put it in mothballs. And you could be shaving with it this week, but I don't know for sure.
I promise I won't. But thank you for sharing that. I view that as you packed up your bag and really not knowing what the next step would be for yourself.
Yeah, I didn't know what it would be. I knew that I hurt. I knew that my dad had just gotten back out of the hospital. He had a severe heart attack. And I knew that I was going back to my parents' house. That was where I tried to escape from getting out of high school, trying to start my career, my military career, and find my way in this world.
Yeah.
I was going back home.
I
didn't have a family.
Thank you for sharing that. And Lefford, when you transitioned out from the military, what was your experience like?
It was terrifying and exciting.
Yeah.
I left my parents' house and went into Uncle Sam's house. And then at 48 years old, I was coming to my own house. And that was rough for me because I didn't know. Like, okay, I had skills. I had been trained. I was at the top of my game. But I had never been an adult civilian. And because I'd never been an adult civilian, I didn't know what.
It's okay. He'll come back on. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll come right back.
Now, the vast majority, approximately 95% of the people of all countries, go around and around without aim or purpose. They drift with the circumstances of life, good or bad.
A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind.
Whereas the successful individuals create their own circumstances and ride them to victory.
When you're on purpose, you're living on purpose. You will never quit if you have a real purpose.
A burning desire to be and to do is the starting point from which the dreamer must take off. But what I have done has been recorded, it's been tested, it's being taken to a free world, and it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born.
And it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born. We're some of those people. that we're spreading this to the world. As your awareness grows, the doubt is gone so that you can manifest whatever it is your heart desires. Isn't that beautiful?
So welcome back. Hopefully Lefford will join us again. But let's talk about, we're all coaches at the Napoleon Hill Institute, and we provide a service to help people transition from their military life or as a veteran to find a passion, something that they love to do so they can step into their new journey. Let's talk about what are the essential things that one needs to make this transition. I know you come from a very disciplined environment, and I share that because my husband's a veteran, and he is so disciplined in simple things like even making his bed every morning. Like he just cannot get up out of bed without making sure that is done to perfection. And even cleaning, nobody beats the way he cleans, because I guess he must have learned how to clean spectacular. So he does it very well in my house. But these are skills that you take with you that will always help you to move forward. And we talk about discipline. How important is it to step into a new venture and be disciplined, going into whatever the next step is for your lives? Like as you make this transition and you're trying to find what is it, your next job, your next venture, what is it that requires, we know discipline is one of the things that we study that's very important. But let's look at the purpose and the desire to do something that you love. Have you thought about when you made the transition to go into something that you really love to do, or did you just take whatever came along? Because most people just take a job to support the family and really not think about, a purpose, or is it a desire that they have?
I can start with that, Giovanna. For me, and I'll share this tomorrow as Frank and I have a session together, is the fact that coming out of the military, I didn't want to work for anybody. I didn't. I made a huge decision because I didn't have any information at all, but I had this burning desire inside me that I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to have a business, and that was it. It was very focused. And you talk about discipline, and sometimes we have the discipline to do things when someone else is telling us to do it, when the environment is built that we must stay fit, we must wear the uniform a specific way, we must, in my day, we had to shine our boots.
Oh, that's as well.
Yes, and the pride of having that, we even had awards. We would recognize people that had the shiniest boots for the week or the month.
Yeah.
So that type of discipline, I still make my bed. I don't go anywhere. I get up and I make my bed, right? So that is just innately. And earlier, when I was talking to Frank, I told him, I said, even when I am in a in-person event and I'm just waiting for something, I go to parade rest. That's my body just knows that when you're waiting, this is what you do, because you need to look a specific way. So the discipline of moving forward is there when the environment is pushing you, or when you have someone, sometimes you're leading and sometimes you're following.
Yes.
It's different, Giovanna, when you are the one that's transitioning out, you're making a decision about your life, and now the order, if I can use that word, is coming from you to you. Now it's can you have the discipline to take that step forward and take care of you, because that's what you want. That's what's going to take you to your purpose. So the discipline, or the definition of discipline, is very unique. But do you have the discipline to give yourself an order?
That's the big shift, right? That's the biggest shift that you're making, is now you're focused on you. You were serving others for so many years. Now it's almost like strange. Like, wait a minute, I have to serve me? Like, how do I do that, right? Because for so many years you've been servicing others. And this is what we really help people do, is turn inward, right? Turn to see what you like. What do you really want? It's your turn. It's, and this is what we love to do, is help people find what their passion is, whether it's the military members or veterans or anyone. Here at the Napoleon Hill Institute, we guide everyone to really find their passion, their purpose, so they can move in the direction that makes them feel like they're important. Because I think we lose that, somewhere along the line. We're so focused on everyone else that we lose that connection to ourselves.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And Frank, if I may ask you the same question, like, what did you feel that was required for you to make this transition?
Well, again, Giovanna, I think it was a little bit different for me because I actually found a career in the military that was very transferable to the civilian community. So I knew long before I retired, I was going to be in some type of sales. Corporate sales, I didn't want to do that. My last 2 years in the Marine Corps, I was spending 26 weeks a year traveling across the country. And I knew that if I went corporate, that's what my life would be like. And I had a wife and 2 young children, and that just wasn't what I wanted. So we kind of went on a wing and a prayer. I knew I was going to be in sales. I always told my students when I was an instructor at recruiter school, I know you don't want to be here, but if you learn the skills I'm going to teach you, you will never be unemployed.
Because sales
Because
is service.
Nothing happens until there's a sale. So I was definitely entrepreneur minded. I was an independent. But when I moved back to my home state of New Hampshire, my wife and children were still in Virginia. I was the forward advance party trying to get things set up. And I just took a job. I took a job in the automotive industry. I was working for a car dealership. Uh, I could sell cars, not a big deal. And that part time job for transition turned into 6 years. I made a good income. I was able to support my family, but I knew there was something better. My wife, who's also a Marine, I actually sent her to boot camp in 1977. We got married in 1978, and she was selling real estate, and that's how I made the transition. I was brushing snow off cars in the middle of winter in New Hampshire, and she was nice and warm inside homes and selling homes. So we actually teamed up together. I got my real estate license, and it progressed from there. So I did 22 years in the Marine Corps, 22 years in real estate. And when we moved to Florida, which was supposed to be retirement, by the way, I'm a complete failure. I have tried to retire 3 times. I can't do it, so it's not going to happen. And so my retirement gig is coaching, and that comes from what I learned from individuals who I had a hand in their enlistment into the Marines. It was on Facebook, and a gentleman who joined the Marine Corps went to recruit training. Meantime, before he joined the Marines, he had made application to Annapolis. He wasn't accepted, so he graduated from high school, went to boot camp. And sure enough, when he graduated from recruit training, he came back to our home state and he was accepted into the academy. And so he accepted that. So then he had to go. If he did boot camp once, now he's got to do it all over again at the Naval Academy. And he retired as a commander in the Navy. And he sent me a picture of he and I in my recruiting office. If you looked at the picture, you wouldn't know who was older because I looked much younger than he did. I was 22 and he was 18. And he said, Frank, you don't realize the impact that you have on people's lives. I just got goosebumps. And that's when my passion started for me to help people. I read a book one time that said, if you want to know what your talent is, ask somebody close to you and tell them not to think about it, just give you an answer. And the only person I trusted with that question was my wife. And she said, empathy. You actually care. And that's been my motto ever since I got out, regardless of what job I did. I actually cared. As a real estate agent, I actually cared. As a recruiter, I actually cared. In my business today as a coach, I actually care. There's no square box that we fit anybody into. So I consider myself to be very fortunate. I had a wonderful career in the military. I've had a wonderful career in any type of sales I've ever done. And I truly believe it's because I come from the heart. I actually care.
Yes.
So I wish I could give you a really exciting story, but that's
That's
the truth of the
beautiful
matter.
because, people connect to people who care. It's the best way I can put it. When you're doing a service and you're doing it from your heart, people can feel it, right? And so it's no accident why you joined Napoleon Hill Institute because,
Not
I
at all.
truly feel that this is where we're at. We're here because we actually care. We went through a transition ourselves, and we're trying to help people see the best version of themselves because they all come here with gifts. They don't know that they come here with gifts and they have it in them, and we want to bring it out to them. And Albert, you are a founding member, right? And
Yes.
you've seen how many people we have helped from the very beginning to actually open their heart to receive and learn how they are so needed in this world to help others. We're going from military service to coaching people, and it's still about servicing each other, and this is the part that I want to emphasize, is that each of you are really truly continuing from your service. It's just in a different capacity because you've opened up your heart to receive that you can still serve in a different capacity. But you had to do some work to understand all this and learn the principles of that have Napoleon Hill brought out to us. Let's
Yeah,
talk
thank you.
about.
Thank you, Giovanna. I never connected the dots just like you have just now. But in thinking about
Yeah.
what I've done, since being in the military and serving my country, and then re-educating myself and going back to school as a returning adult, I was looked upon as a leader there. I was the president of the Engineering Society at Penn State University branch campus. I went to the main campus and immediately tried out for a resident assistant role. They were paying for room and board, and I thought, wow, this is sunshine on my parade. I can do this all day long. And they accepted me with open arms, and I was in charge of the dorms where the football players were and the engineers. And you know their main question for everybody going there was, okay, you have two 18-year-olds in a room and they've never been away from home and they're having an argument and they don't know how to get along together. And I said, well, the problem isn't that you've picked out an incident. The problem is that they need to have communication and understand that you're there to help them, that I'm here to support whatever needs that they have, answer questions, try to help them get along with their roommates because this is a temporary assignment and they should be focused on their schoolwork and learning about what they're going to do in life. And they just loved that. That was the right answer that I don't think too many other people gave,
I love that.
because it's a community.
Well, that's
And,
it. Yeah.
and when you're serving others, it's always about a community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Ericka, we'll go to you and just, we know that the principles work. We apply it. We see the transformation in people. Share with us your feelings of when you're speaking to a veteran that you're helping to transition. What's your process?
The process is of showcasing how we can go through transition to being successful someplace else, to being significant, to then being transformational. Success is our journey, and good or bad, we can showcase how we got there, but not until we start helping others. And that's where we start living, at least for me, living our purpose. Do we not then become significant? We were significant in that life for that person. And after you feel that amazing feeling of being significant to someone's life, then transformation takes place. So my transformation looks like it's a journey, but just recently I was selected to be the military division leader for the Napoleon Hill Institute. And here I am with you. Here I am with my two brothers. And it's a different journey that all of us, Lefford's not here, but Lefford's part of the team, that we're moving the Napoleon Hill Institute to showcase that there's a division specifically for the military and the veteran and their families. That's pretty incredible.
It is very incredible. It is very incredible because it's continuing the service, right? And now to help people to see they're important, because I know that when we are living to help and serve others, we're taught that everyone comes before us. And so this transition is very important to really start focusing on our individual gifts that we hold inside. I want to go through a little bit about when, we have so many other programs to help for the transition, but you'd mentioned in your, and I've been trying to watch it, your shows, you mentioned something that really touched my heart, which was, you're not alone. You're not alone. So I feel that when there's that separation from what is known and you're going into the unknown, you do end up feeling alone. And the importance of being in a community like this to help you make this transition is so vital to your well-being, to your mental well-being. Each of you have what I call, Napoleon Hill says, a positive mental attitude. But how many actually come out with a positive mental attitude? Because I know people who have PSD, was it PSDT? Am I saying it right?
PTSD.
PTSD, thank you. That are really lost and need help. And this is one of the reasons why I am doing this show, because I believe that the mental state of once you leave could be, on the negative side.
If I may say, Giovanna, and I know that Frank and I will talk about this because I want him to share this, but there's a magical, not so magical number, which is 22. And that in the military community means 22 service members commit suicide a day. Sometimes it's 14, sometimes it's 45. So the standard, the average is 22. And for multiple reasons, so there's not a specific one, but there is a link to, like you said, Giovanna, feeling alone. Feeling like they are the only ones possibly going through this, making a decision that is permanent when you know that in Napoleon Hill we teach that whatever you're going through, if it's not what you want, it's temporary. because there's an equal, right? There's an opposite. The law of polarity says that if you're going through this and it's bad, there's something that is equally good on the other side.
Absolutely.
And so for at least me, I am passionate about suicide prevention, from the suicide prevention in general, but suicide prevention in the military.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Frank?
Giovanna, I am an ambassador for Mission 22, which leads the fight against veteran suicide. But I do believe the principle of definiteness of purpose. If a service member comes out of the service and they have at least a focus of what they want to achieve, maybe just for the next year. A lot of people get the deer in the headlights look when you ask them, what do you want? Because they're looking too big and they're not ready to look that big yet. And so sometimes it might be, can I get through the next 6 months or through the first year? Can I head in the right direction? And what are those steps? And Napoleon teaches, make a plan. It doesn't have to be perfect, but take action and take action right now. I'm doing a presentation next month for my community called The Big Four. And Napoleon talks about the four principles that if you didn't do any of the others, would set you light years ahead of your competition. And they are definiteness of purpose, the mastermind. So that's all about networking. The going the extra mile.
Yes.
And applied faith. Those are the big four. And when we're talking about faith, we're talking about have faith in ourselves. When we talk about faith, people tend to get uncomfortable because they think we're all of a sudden going to go down that religious route. It's faith in ourselves, identifying what we want and have the belief that we can actually accomplish that, and know that we don't have to do it alone. We can create a small support group of maybe fellow veterans who've gotten out the last couple of years and just banding together with them and help each other through. I'm a past comment of our local Marine Corps lead community, and that's what we do. Is we try to help veterans transition by giving them a place to go so that they can have that camaraderie, have that community. So the big four: definiteness of purpose, mastermind, going the extra mile. That's easy for military folks. We focus on mission.
Yes.
Find out what the mission is and go after it, and then have faith in yourself. You can do this.
I love that. I love that. And that applies to everyone, right? It's almost like a standard for everyone who wants to take action and step into something greater. Albert, I know you mentioned, and I have to say, you must have had, when you did your transition, belief that you were ready to step into something different, right? Because that is it's a key component when we go through a transformation or a change. I can't hear you.
When I first got home from service and I was laying on my bed because it was hard for me to move or get up and feel my legs, belief that there was a God and prayer asking for relief and helping me so that I could feel better got me going. And I agree with Frank's four, but my four are different. Definiteness of purpose. I knew that I could do something, but I wasn't sure what it was yet. A mastermind. I incorporate that into a lot of the things that I'm doing currently. 2 of the 4 books that I've written have been with masterminds. The people that were in my mastermind group all became co-authors in my books. And I would say imagination. Imagine what you want to do. And then if you have a burning desire, you can make that happen. So definiteness, a purpose, a burning desire, and imagination are my top 3. And that mastermind puts everything over the top because now you've got the alignment from all the people in your group, whether it's your board of directors at your company, or if it's the authors that are writing the book that you're creating to be published. They all work together in harmony and unison and that service together. creates a wonderful experience.
Love that. Thank you so much. You definitely mentioned a word, imagination, which is so powerful. And Ericka, you did the show today on imagination. Can you share a little bit about what you said today about imagination? Because I really feel that everything, and we know whether, you're looking at this phone or our jacket or anything, everything started in someone's imagination. And that's where everything begins. So let's talk a little bit about that, because we used the imagination when we were a kid and we stopped using it, right? But
Yeah, we talked about boxing it away. Albert
yeah,
and I talked about how having a combination, right? Napoleon Hill teaches that there's two forms of imagination, that synthetic imagination and that creative one, and how we can use both and not get stuck in, let's say, an example of the synthetic of just looking at life from what we know or from what we see, and just inject that creative one and use that synthetic imagination as a foundation, but then open the door for what's possible. Open that creative mind to what's possible. And I think that as military members are transitioning, and you said it, Giovanna, there's so many things going on.
yeah,
It's an emotional roller coaster, as smooth as you think it is or not. There's still a roller coaster of emotions. So being able to use your imagination as a powerhouse to see what's possible and keep that positive mental attitude will
absolutely.
make you make the next step forward.
I love it. I love it. So we're going to be wrapping it up soon. Let's just go around and just final thoughts on what you can share for anyone who's watching this that can help them really take that first step, right? We want them to just take that first step to this transformation, the transition, to take a look at Napoleon Hill and how we can help them. Frank, I'll start with you.
So first step, take a deep breath.
Mm.
Um, 6 months or so before you make a transition, if not even a little bit sooner than that, start giving some thought to what do you really want? Definitely read Think and Grow Rich. My first read of Think and Grow Rich was in 1977 when I first started in sales. It's a fabulous book. It's not meant to be read, it's meant to be studied. So go chapter by chapter, go back again, do it again, and do it again. And as you do that, it's a resource that will help your imagination, help you believe that whatever it is that you can conceive and believe, you can achieve it. And there are no limitations. I looked it up today because I'm only about 5'4.5", and I wonder if that's really true. Could I have really been a basketball player? And I found out that one of the shortest professional basketball players was 5'3". So if I could believe it, I could have achieved it. So there's nothing that's not achievable. So just take that step, take it with confidence. As a veteran, you bring a lot to the world. You have a lot of value. When you first walk out, you don't feel like that, but you do. Believe in yourself, have faith, and just move forward.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Albert?
Yeah, I have to agree with Frank. Believe that you can do it. Use that fear and turn that fear into faith that you served your country. You're a mission of possible. The impossible, I like to change to I'm possible. So anything that you put your mind to and can conceive and believe, you can achieve.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Ericka, come to you. Last thoughts?
Yeah, just a quick phrase. Do not neglect your immense power that you have in this world. Do not, like Frank and Albert just said, do not forget your value. Do not forget your worth.
Just love that. And, I will say this. If you don't believe you can do it, borrow our beliefs, because we know you can. And we're here to support you every step of the way. And I thank you all for your service to this country and for your continuing of service, because we're all in it together. This is our world. It's not my world, your world. It's our world. And we are meant to hold each other's hand to make this world a better place. So thank you everyone for joining us. And if you need to reach any of us, we're at the Napoleon Hill Institute.com. We can be reached there or our individual Facebook pages. Thank you everyone for joining us, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Giovanna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanna.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.